Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining today's discussion about the role of national libraries in times of economic and health crisis. National libraries all over the world are devoted to education, to culture, to social and intellectual advancement. I believe they serve as the nation as a whole, and they are actually the memory of their country. National libraries help in building a better, more knowledgeable, and more impartial society. Of course, national libraries have facilities and services that are open to the public and unique collections, some of which are only physical. In the last decades, national libraries have invested in digital transformation, and many precious collections have been made available online. Nevertheless, the 2020 pandemic has had a major impact on national libraries, like it had on every other aspect of our lives. Today, we will focus on the way in which national libraries have adapted to the, we can say new normal under the pandemic, and share experiences from 4 nations. I'm honored to introduce our guests. Kira Steen Hansen, Deputy Director and Head of Copenhagen University Library and member of the Board of Directors at the Royal Danish Library. Dr. Hans Pecha, Director, Pictures, Archives and Graphics Department at the Austrian National Library. Oren Weinberg, Chief Executive Officer at the National Library of Israel. And Vadim Duda, Director General at the Russian State Library in Moscow. I am Tamar Sadeh, a Vice President at Ex Libris, and I will be the moderator of today's session. I'd like to start by asking each of our panelists to present their national library. Kira, would you like to start, please?
Okay, you can hear me. Good. So the National Library, or the Royal Danish Library as it is in Denmark, is not a traditional library. It is actually also university library for 5 universities in Denmark, and 60% of our budget is actually spent towards universities. So it's kind of a different setup than most national libraries. We have recently just implemented a library system with a vision of sharing research across all research institutions in Denmark. And that vision goes for the National Library, but also the whole library branch within Denmark, that the research community and the research university libraries and the research institutions as a whole come together in resource and self-sharing. We have also within the Royal Danish Library, the National Library Consortium, so that's a huge task force as well. And we have lots, as probably most of you have, lots of cultural activities like concerts and also talks. And currently we had a huge Nick exhibition, and we were hoping to have lots of tourists coming into Copenhagen to see that exhibition, and unfortunately that's not the case currently. So that was a really brief introduction to the Royal Danish Library, and I'm so pleased to be here.
Thank you, Kira. And let's move, please, to Vadim. Your introduction, please.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the floor. It's a big privilege for me to be with you. Very nice wishes from Moscow. We have a Moscow with almost snow already, so we feel the new year is coming. So we just want to share the Christmas feelings with you, ladies and gentlemen. Russian State Library is one of the largest libraries in the world, but definitely this is the best for us. There are something like 1,600 people who work in the Russian State Library, and we really love this library. This is a big part of our life. The collection of the library is more or less 47 million of various documents, including the most valuable books and manuscripts. For example, we are the happy owners of Gutenberg Bible, one of the best copies known in the world. We do believe, if we are talking about challenges, of course, it's the next point, but we do believe we need to talk and to find the very serious and comprehensive digital strategy. It's not just the latest fashion for the libraries. If you want to survive, we need to be more presented in digital field. And thanks for this conference. Thanks for this exchange. Thank you.
Thank you, Vadim. Hans.
Sorry, I have to unmute.
You are unmuted. It's fine now.
Okay, it's fine. Okay. Well, first, Tamar and colleagues, thank you very much for this invitation, and thanks to its leaders also for taking the initiative to organize this important webinar. It's a great pleasure for me and an honor to represent the Austrian National Library, but I'm speaking to you here also as a member of the Executive Committee of CENL, the Conference of European National Librarians. And for people who might not be very well aware of this committee, I'd like to spend a few words also on CENL. The Conference of European National Librarians is a network of 49 national libraries in 45 European countries, and the members of CENL are the national librarians of the member states of the Council of Europe. Now, European national libraries have a very long and fruitful tradition of working together and sharing knowledge and information. And of course, we do share information also on the COVID-19 pandemic on our website, www.cenl.org. So if you, here you can find a map with an actual overview how these 49 European national libraries have successfully responded to the crisis. I think this is a very valuable source of information. Take a look at it. Now, the Austrian National Library is the leading scientific library in Austria and preserves and gives access to the most valuable cultural heritage treasures of Austria. We are looking back to 650 years of history, and the library with its special collections of music, arts, literature, papyri, and maps belongs to the most important cultural institutions in Austria, of course, and attracts visitors or has attracted visitors and scholars from all over the world. In the last 10 years, we have created a large digital library with more than 600,000 books online and millions of newspaper pages and also visual objects. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oren, last but not least.
Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to see you. Some of the colleagues that I haven't seen for a while, like Vadim. We don't have snow yet, but we have a lot of sun. So that's the difference. So the National Library of Israel has been established long ago, before the State of Israel was formed in 1892. And we've been for many years both a university library and a national library. We have been part of the Hebrew University in Jerusalem until 2007, when a new law was passed that set the new role of the National Library. We are both the library of the State of Israel, but also of the Jewish world or the Jewish communities around the world. So we have a dual role that we collect and preserve as any other national library, both the heritage of the country, but also the life of Jews wherever they are, the history of those communities, and the current day-to-day life of those communities. We have been in the last 10 years involved in a very fast pace of a change process at the library, from the traditional university academic role of a library to a more cultural institution that strives to open access and enhance the usage of its collection by vast audiences and diversified audiences. And we have been involved in, of course, many digital initiatives, many partnerships with other organizations and both libraries, archives, and museums around the world and in Israel, and doing a lot of cultural and educational initiatives. And aside to that, we have been building a new building for the library outside of the campus, the university campus, that we hope to move in mid-22. So we're actually now in the last year of construction and very busy with that.
Thank you, Oren. Actually, we can see at the background the plan or part of the plan of the new National Library building, which is going to be amazing. So let's go to the topic itself of the impact of the pandemic on whatever is happening at national libraries. And we can start the discussion by looking at the major challenges you see in supporting your users, the researchers, the learners, the general public, mainly now that the facilities and some of the services are closed. I can just think of the magnificent reading rooms at all national libraries that are not available for the public. So, Hans, would you please refer to this challenge?
Yes. Well, I would say the major challenge for our library was to change as quick as possible and as perfect as possible all our services to online services for all kinds of users, which means that we had first to change our infrastructure to prepare home office facilities for all our staff training and online support, not only first of all for the staff, that they could fulfill their duties and help our users. So this kept us busy the first 2-3 weeks, I would say, before the first lockdown in March. And we were really surprised how successful we were, how quick we could do it. What we would never have thought about that. We basically thought this would take us ages to change to online, and it was possible in 2-3 weeks. So this, and then, but we wanted to also to do something immediately. So as I mentioned, we do have a big and a large digital library, but we improved the access to this digital library. So we created zooming in facilities in higher resolution to our collections, which we have not done before. We tried to improve the access to the digital library. And we created new services for our students, especially for high school students, to give them online support. And we did, in fact, also keep the on-site support in a very limited way, but still people could come and loan books and take them home. So these were, but most importantly, to change the whole infrastructure and prepare the staff. This was the basic task for the first lockdown.
Thank you. Vadim, would you like to share your experiences?
Yes, I would love to. Like many libraries in March, we faced a very serious challenges, and we had 2 stages of being closed, if I may say so. The first stage was from the 15th of March, if I'm not mistaken, and we could not have readers in the library, but all of our staff, they could come to their workplaces. And we faced a very interesting demand from our readers. They were not satisfied with the access to databases and our electronic library. They said, we need books. And we started a very interesting service, a very interesting service, which was a kind of scan on demand. So the users, the readers, they use our electronic catalog to place an order. And this order for fulfillment, it didn't come to the cathedra, but it went to the scan department. And our readers, literally in a couple of hours, could have an access to the portion of the document scanned on the demand. And of course, we paid a lot of attention to the copyright law, because still we did not have an opportunity or permission from all the authors to share the content free of charge. But we did it like the portion of the document which was allowed. Actually, we believe it was a very interesting business model. We managed to serve something like 700 orders per day, which is quite a good number for me. I see a great potential in this service. It can connect users not only to the collection of the Russian State Library, but we can combine our collections as a global community of libraries. And this theoretically might be a service of access to the content of any library in the world, if they can combine and integrate our workflows and copyright laws, and of course many other things. Before the pandemic, we served something like 3,000 visitors a day, and we faced the growth 10 times the growth of the traffic to our web resources, to the National Electronic Library. So yes, we learned a lot from the pandemic times, and we are looking forward to use this knowledge and this experience even in the normal life. So that's it, I guess. That was the most interesting experience of the pandemic.
It was indeed very interesting. I think the pandemic has driven all of us to act in a different way. We had to be more innovative. Have you launched any new initiatives as a result of the pandemic? Maybe, Oren, you can start by describing these initiatives.
So, the pandemic started in Israel also around March, and we had to close the library for the public, and also halt many of our work in terms of culture and education. So we understood very quickly that it's going to last for a while, and we have to cope with this, not only in the traditional library services that we can offer remotely, but also we have to keep the involvement of the public also with all the events that we do, and we moved most of them online. So we opened what we call the virtual reading room, that we offered until now more than 100 different events, culture, concerts, seminars, talks with authors, with different professions, panels, and so on. In all those events, we had more than 100,000 people participate. So we saw that as a great success. And in the last few months, we also moved not only to Israel audience, but we opened what we call an international reading room. So we have many different events also targeted to audience outside of Israel in different languages and topics, with many partners in other organizations. So we encourage also different audience towards our collection. We introduced a documentary film that we usually have the summer in the library, so we moved it also to online festival. And also our education programming was, we moved all of that to online, both the formal education programming and the informal one. One of those programs, we call that the balcony for children that can work with our collection, digital collection in the community. So we had hundreds of those children participate in a week program, a daily program, and we saw that as a great success. So we didn't introduce new initiatives, but we transformed them to the digital world.
Thank you. I think it was much appreciated by the public, I'm sure. And Kira, perhaps you can describe your work, and specifically in Denmark, where the library was not actually closed most of the time, right?
I can definitely reconnect with the others' talks, because the digital strategy, we actually had that already, but implementing the digital strategy so fast, I was really impressed with the readiness and the user acceptance, because the readiness within the staff was really, it didn't take us a couple of weeks, it took nearly a couple of days. It went really fast into flipping all the teaching and all the guidance and doing new services within a digital context. But the users, they accepted it and they immediately interacted with us. I think that was really impressive. But one of the things in Denmark is that we have a total lockdown for a couple of months, maybe 3 months, and then we actually opened the library again. So during the whole summer, we had an open library where you can enter the library due to health restrictions and all that, of course. But many people would prefer to stay at home. And then just a couple of days ago, we have a lockdown again now. So we have been in and out of the physical library, in and out of the digital library, and that's been challenging. It really has. But I can also talk about what the team has said something about. Scan on demand, you call it. We called it a PDF service. But it described PDF, some documents that were needed for example, the university students when they were into. So they have an request form that went into the library system. We figured it out, and we scanned them and emailed them the material that they needed. We have also, one of the things that I was most impressed by was us profiling our digital collections. We have lots of digital collections. We have been profiling a lot, but due to the users accepting more digital material and being at home, all of them, they crave actually for more information. So us doing a profile campaign was really helpful at that time. We could definitely see that the use of our digital collection went up, and that I think was really interesting. I think you should also know is when we have lockdown in Denmark, one of the challenges for us was when we are on the lockdown, everybody knows when they're sick and when they're not sick. But when you have an open library within the corona pandemic, then everybody needs to be tested once in a while. So they need to take time off from their jobs. So all the work schedules, we need to transform the work schedule on a daily basis due to which staff is currently available to come into job and who can work from home. And I think that's actually been an administrative huge challenge for us during having the library open. So somehow I nearly prefer to have it a lockdown period instead of having in between openness. Yeah. From a primarily an administrative perspective, of course, not from a user perspective. There's not of the library open.
Thank you. I seem to recall that at the Austrian National Library, there is a special COVID-19 collection, right, Hans? Probably was not planned for 2020, but as it happened, this is what you've done?
Yes, we did a special web crawl on COVID-19. This is what we are doing for an important topic besides the normal web harvesting. And so we had one initiative documenting the COVID-19 pandemic on our web harvesting. Yeah.
It will be interesting to look at it in the future. Maybe you can take us to the next topic, and that's about budgets. So in many countries, everything to do with culture has been pushed to the end of the priority list. And in addition, activities that all of you refer to, such as exhibitions or concerts in the library that would typically yield additional income for the National Library, could not take place. So what was the impact on your library and your cultural role?
Well, I think first I have to say that the cultural sector is extremely important for the Austrian economy, and this is especially true for Vienna. And the big museums and our library, we do hold 5 museums within our library infrastructure: literature, papyri, a language museum, the House of History. They attracted visitors from all over the world, and maybe up to 80% of visitors coming from abroad, not from Austria. So the pandemic, especially in Vienna, did cause a really dramatic financial situation for the museums, for the theaters, and also for the libraries, and also for the artists, of course. Which means that since the first lockdown, the so-called self-coverage ratio in Austrian federal museums has fallen dramatically. In other words, museums can cover less and less the total costs with their income. For example, in the Belvedere, the self-coverage rate went down from 80% to 37%. At the Museum of Fine Arts, from 52% to 33%, and at the Albertina, from 70% to 52%. And these big museums, the Albertina, the Museum of Fine Arts, and the Belvedere, they had the largest loss of visitors. And for example, according to the preview figures, the personal costs alone sometimes exceed the museum's income more and more. At the Austrian National Library, for example, the personal costs are 10 times the income, more than 10 times the income. And so this means that the library and also the museum's director had to start negotiations with politicians and with politics. And just a few days ago, we got a first agreement that the federal funding for art and culture in 2021 will be increased by around 6.5%, which means that the total funding for culture in Austria amounts to 466 million, and it will increase around 30 million next year. This is a first step, which does not include further funds that will be allocated to various institutions and artists. And what is still under negotiation is that the federal budget for the museums and the libraries will be increased. The basic funding has to be increased. But this is still under negotiation. But as a first step, these 30 million. This is what has been achieved, and it is more than necessary because only in Vienna the tourism has still is on a 20% level compared to the years before. It has to be said also, and this is what we learned from this crisis, that the cultural sector actually is more important for the Austrian economy than tourism. So this gives us some trumps in the negotiations, and we hope it will continue. And I do hope that it will not be focused only on the big tanks, but also come back to the people, to the small artists and the creative industries, because we need them, they support us. And it's not only the high culture, it's culture in itself. It has to be guaranteed and supported in the future. Yeah.
Thank you. We all agree. Oren, would you like to refer to the same situation, or the budgetary situation in your library?
Well, first of all, I must say that I envy you, Hans, that you're talking about increases in the next year. We're only talking about decreasing. So you're a lucky country. In Israel, we had, maybe some of you know, we had 3 elections in 2 years, and we have fallen in love with this idea. So we are also aiming for a 4th one next year. And this unfortunately resulted in the fact that the country has no permanent budget. Actually all the cultural sector was stopped existing in a way. No performances, no cultural events, and no budget for cultural institutions, or a huge decrease in the budgeting of those institutions. So the National Library also suffered at the beginning of the year a 30% reduction in government allocation that almost halted all our activities for many months, until we also had to close the library completely for 2 weeks in the summer, and had to send all our staff for 2 weeks with unpaid leave. And we had been in a big crisis at that point. On the optimistic side, this crisis resulted with pressure in the Israeli parliament and the public that returned at least some of the government allocation that was taken at the beginning of the year, and also resulted with many friends of the library, both in Israel and outside, that helped with private funding that allow us to increase our activities almost back to normal at the end of the year. But we are still very concerned about what will happen in 2021. And this is a crucial time for the library, as we are preparing for moving for the new building, and it's actually all our efforts geared towards that process. So if there is still a budget crisis in Israel, it will probably halt a lot of our activities again. So it's not easy, but I must say that it's even worse than the effects of the COVID-19 from our side. With the COVID, we have coped, but with no funding is a serious issue.
Well, indeed. Kira, would you like to describe the situation in Denmark, which I think is a bit different?
Yes, but at the same time, I really relate to you, Oren. I'm so sorry. I would love to send a lot of money to you. Yeah, the situation in Denmark, we could definitely tell that the whole culture area in the beginning of the pandemic was a priority. The government didn't talk about culture at all. They talked about health, they talked about schools, about lots of things, but not culture at all. And then slowly towards the summertime, we could feel a growing focus within Denmark and the whole community on actually culture is a mental thing. It's mental health status that we need to have culture in place just to stay healthy in our mental. We were focusing so much on the physical health instead of the mental health. And that focus also got Denmark to think, not all of Denmark, but most of Denmark, to think that culture brings Denmark together. So we need culture and art. We haven't, within the Danish Royal Library, experienced any cutbacks yet. But we have, of course, decreased the income during to the exhibitions and all that. But we haven't had a cutback yet within our finance and what we get from the state. But of course, we worry a lot of getting a corona bill, as we call it, in 2021, because someone has to pay the bill eventually. And how much that bill is going to be placed on us compared to other sectors. And I think there's an understanding right now that the culture sector should survive. So hopefully we should get funding, but I'm not sure if we get the same funding, but hopefully we will not stand in a situation where we worry as you do, Owen. So, yeah. And then because we are not only a national library, also a university library, we can feel right now that universities have had cutbacks already. So they're trying to place cutbacks on the university side of the library. And that we started with a bit, but due to us splitting over to more digital, then we can close buildings down. To be really honest, we are looking at closing library buildings to meet those cutbacks needs from the universities, but we are not quite there where we have decided, but we are in those discussions right now.
Thank you, Kira. This takes us to the next topic about, again, to think differently. So what about new partnerships that you may have created, you may have built with others, such as academic libraries, public libraries, commercial companies, or perhaps government organizations? Kira, would you like to refer to your case?
Yes, the Royal Danish Library reports to. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So the Royal Danish Library reports to the Ministry of Culture, but the universities, they report to the Ministry of Research and Higher Education. What we could see in the beginning of this year, where the lockdown was, that we needed to collaborate much more between those two libraries or those two ministries to make sure the ministry knew, okay, how do we serve the university students best from the Royal Danish Library? But that was not within the thinking of the Ministry of Culture, because they were thinking of exhibitions and concerts. So we got the two ministries, I think, is very much aligned now due to the COVID, and that's a strange situation to be in, that we wish the ministries to talk more closely together about what is the Royal Danish Library, and we actually achieved that really fun. So one of the big things is that the understanding from a university board perspective around the Royal Danish Library, they probably seem to, in the past, to have a more traditional the Royal Danish Library, where they now see it as a really close partner within the digital content, within the digital agenda, within open science agendas, seeing us making PDF services really fast, transforming services from the printed collection to a digital. And I think that partnership we can really use in the future as well. For example, we are right now, this is one of the things that within us having the national license consortia within the Royal Danish Library, we are right now in negotiations with Elsevier. And we can see that the whole Denmark is actually building up a community around supporting the Royal Danish Library in those negotiations due to understanding what we are trying to achieve. And I think that's really interesting.
Thank you. It is interesting and very optimistic. Vadim, you told me about new partnership in Russia. Please, could you share your experiences?
Yes, it was really interesting to hear my colleagues about initiatives and partnerships let me share our experience in this field. First of all, we decided to concentrate on probably the most important partnership, which is the partnership with our Ministry of Culture, because this is the major source of our financing, and what we decided to do is we need a new role. Actually, it's a new role of National Library. We manage some national size federal projects for the Ministry of Culture. Let me just mention some of these projects, and I will also mention the partnerships we need to achieve some of the goals. So the first project is National Digital Library. It's very far from just digitization of the collections of the library. It's a very serious project, and we need to build a very special, very new legal framework, including digital legal deposit. So we don't just digitize our collections. We receive the PDF of all Russian books from the publishers, and it took us to establish very serious partnership with Russian publishers, because we have a law already of digital deposit, and we needed to build the partnership with the publishers from the technology point of view, from the workflows, because we really, as a National Library, we believe we need to collect 100% of the titles published in Russia in PDF and digital form, because we don't want to spend money then to digitize the files. The second partnership in this project was when it comes for the digital files, you would also need to think about digital bibliography, because the traditional workflows, the traditional methodology of cataloging, of systematization of the files probably wouldn't be enough for the digital environment. So, in a partnership with one of the major universities in Moscow, we started a special department of digital bibliography, and from the next year we will start preparing bachelor's and masters in digital bibliography. I think it's a very interesting initiative, and we are very happy to find some partners for this. So this is just to mention a couple of initiatives only for the National Digital Library. Then we also thought that many of the libraries have some spare time because they don't serve readers, and we have some staff who are not really busy with the collection. And we decided to start a nationwide monitoring of the library collections. There are something like 880 million documents total in the public libraries of the Russian Federation. And as you know, colleagues, many of them are not in a very good condition. So we decided to initiate the national project of conservation and preservation. But for this, we needed some data. We needed to understand how many items needed some special treatment. So we carried out this monitor, and now we have very comprehensive figures. We know very well what's happening with the collections in more than 300 of major libraries of the Russian Federation. And we have a commitment from the Ministry of Culture. They would finance a very serious national program of preservation and conservation. And the third project I wanted to mention is, we call it a digital app called Svet, which means the light in Russian. So, the light. So, there is an illusion that all the books are available in the internet, which is not true. Some of the books will just have some links to the paid service. Some of the links would lead you just to the teaser of the book, and you have to pay to read the rest. So, actually, we got some money and we bought the rights for the public to have absolutely free more than 1,200 of the books. So, and we packed those books in a very modern mobile app, which is very appealing to the youngsters. This app does not only contain books. There are some gaming mechanics, some achievements which is very appealing to the young generation. So, of course, it was done with a good partnership with the publishers of the Russian Federation, with the keepers of the licenses, and I think it was a great initiative. We started this app in September, and for the 2 months, we had something like 65,000 downloads of this app. So we have 65,000 of more readers for the Russian State Library. So basically, these 3 initiatives. Of course, we have much more on the list, much more on our agenda. But that's what I just wanted to share with you for the brief presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. This is amazing. 650,000 new readers is a great achievement, especially that we're talking about young people, probably mainly. So it's inspiring. So we can continue with a more optimistic approach now that we hear about the vaccine being just around the corner for many of us. We can all start thinking about the post-pandemic era. I wonder, how do you see your post-pandemic services? What will go back to what it was? What will change? What of the changes that happened should change, should be kept? How do you see your post-pandemic services? And maybe on a more general level, is there a role for the National Library in the nation's recovery? So perhaps, Hans, would you like to start?
Well, I think the overall lesson is that we have to accelerate our transition to going digital in the library on all levels. We are much more confident and supportive now for home office facilities. Also, this and I think that as colleagues have mentioned already, our users have changed their mind about the library, and they could see how quick we could respond, how adequate we are dealing with new technologies, and we hope that this will attract young people and younger generations to the library. This is very important. And from a political standpoint, I would say that maybe more than before, politicians can see the importance of libraries in the cultural sector in Austria, that we have an active part, not only in economic terms, but also for the mental health of the nation, I would say. And this is very good. This is, and we have to work on that. But I do see especially for libraries, a good future. Yeah.
That's fantastic to hear. Oren.
So, two things that we believe, at least at the NLI, that needs to be done is to accelerate all our digital initiatives as wider and faster as ever before, and to provide everything that we could do at the building as much as possible also at home. And to the part of what will be when the pandemic is over, well, we believe that there will be a boost in tourism and in culture in a year and a half from now. And this will be actually the timing that the new NLI building will be open in Jerusalem. So we believe that, and we work towards that the new building will be a destination by itself. It's a beautiful building designed by Herzog de Meuron, one of the leading firms in the world today from Basel, Switzerland. And we'll be able to provide, apart from the basic or traditional library services, in a beautiful new reading rooms, also great events there that are connected to our collection, in a auditorium, in a big auditorium, seminar rooms, and new exhibition galleries. So we hope that every tourist that comes to Jerusalem in the future will be seeing also the library, both within Israel and outside, and participate in and become a user of the library. So we see a great future for the library and in the overall cultural life of Israel.
Well, this is very nice to hear, and we share the same hope that the pandemic will be over soon, and in a year and a half, everything will be back to normal. Vadim, what do you say from the Russian perspective?
From the Russian perspective, okay. First of all, of course, we would like to get back to the traditional workflows, to the traditional model of serving our readers. But unfortunately, I don't think this would be possible in a full scale. So we do believe that our priority is to develop and accept a very comprehensive digital transformation strategy. Again, it's very far from just the digitization of the collections. Let me share this figure. We digitize more or less 25,000 books per year, which is quite a good number. And of course, we receive something like 50 or 70,000 every year from other libraries of the Russian Federation. But it will take us at least 2,000 years to digitize all our collection. So it's a little bit too far. So I believe the most important component of the strategy is bibliography. We need to build a serious digital bibliography approach because we want to share the information about our collections in digital space. And I think this would be our priority. Then, when we're talking about the role of the National Library in the nation's recovery, I do believe, even in the worst time, we need to read good books. It means our mental health. So we will keep our efforts to promote the reading of the good books, and this is our input to the nation's recovery. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we all agree. Kira, what do you say?
It's very difficult to actually add on all those good perspectives, and I totally agree. But if I should take something with me, the situation we're in is that actually the digital focus or the digital transformation of the library is very much accepted within our user group. I think that's really an important thing to realize. We had an issue where we thought that humanities will still prefer printed books, and they definitely still do, but at the same time, they accept digital services on the side of that. I think that's a great thing to recognize. I think that resource and sharing of skills is a crucial thing that we figured out. We knew that this was a strategy that we wanted from the Royal Danish Library to get more library partners to understand that if we share our resources and our skills, then we can achieve more visionary. But then actually getting together during the pandemic is a big thing. And talking about partnerships, I think we've been focusing on partnerships within Denmark. I would love to focus on partnerships across borders as the next step. I think that should be the Royal Danish Library's next path. I think we figured out that, or we knew this, that the Royal Danish Library were for all people in Denmark. But I think that people in Denmark tend to think of us as a high-end cultural institution instead of for everybody in Denmark. And I hope that the future will bring that the Royal Danish Library for everybody within Denmark. I think that transformation and those experiences are something that we can build on in the future. So lots of good thinking and good hopes for the library, definitely. And I think one thing, if I should add one thing, is that the whole openness, the agenda of being open towards each other, sharing resources, sharing everything. I think that's so crucial as a library role. And I think that library role is much more accepted during a pandemic because everything is so closed. So suddenly everybody internationally see that the library is so much needed because we are the gatekeepers of openness. I think that's one of the points, yeah.
Thank you. We are nearing the end of this exciting hour, and I'd like to thank our panelists for an inspiring session. Let's hope that we will find ourselves in the post-pandemic era very soon, and we will emerge from it stronger, more collaborative, and more just. So thank you all, and goodbye.